Well, Tasha and Russell, they both love reading books. Tasha and Russell, they both love reading books. Well, what do you do when you share such love?
Welcome
Well,
to the
you start a club, you
123rd
start a
episode of
club,
the
an adult
ABC
book
Pod,
club,
the
an
Adult Book
adult
Club
book
with Taja and Russell. I am
club, and
Russell.
a
She is Taja.
Hello.
podcast.
Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the podcast where we drink and we read things. And on this episode, we read My Friends by Fredrik Backman. But before we get to that, it has been 2 weeks, Taja. What have you been getting into?
Well, I had like a little itty bitty potentially explosive diarrhea parasite scare, but it wasn't really that, so it's fine. What was
Just
it?
your run-of-the-mill explosive
Just
diarrhea.
the run of the mill, plus like some weird random nausea that meant I basically had to like stop my car and throw up on the way home, which
Ugh.
was not fun, and especially because I had to pull off into I had to get off of the road so I was being safe, and I pulled into the golf course where we normally golf because it was the closest thing, and I felt comfortable there. And luckily no one saw me, I think. And it was, I wouldn't say it was painless. It was pretty awful.
Ugh.
But it wasn't the parasite, which is like the the best part of this whole story is that I
Yes.
don't have the explosive diarrhea parasite. And then I've been doing lots of DragonCon swag prep. I'm very excited about all that. I think I'm about like 50% of the way, 50 to 75% of the way through what I think I want. The problem is that I like every day think of something else.
Yeah.
I also have been working my way through more DRDs. I tried to make one this morning and like I had to like rip it apart like 4 times. So I'm not at the top of my game with that. I got to get back on track. Um, and hopefully that will happen soon. And then yeah, then there was lobster delivery in Maine where we got to hang out with our friends in a beautiful place and we had really good weather and yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, like whatever it is, 5 days in Maine or something like that. Camping out on the coast, you can't really beat that. And like you said, great weather and like the perfect temperature every night where like a fire keeps you warm and like keeps
Mhm.
you, I don't know, like I don't know. There's you said that TikTok too, and it's like just there's something about being around a campfire
Yeah,
with the people you care about. And you don't know what you're going to talk about or what you're going to get into,
it's
and
magical.
it is. It's a very calming,
Yes.
relaxing
Yes.
situation, which is definitely what I needed.
Mhm.
So yeah, Maine was great, and just we didn't do anything like crazy big. We did go to the local library, had a book sale, which
It
we
was
took
so
full
great.
advantage of.
Yep.
Us and a few other friends, and we did just a whole bunch of beach combing and found many a cool things, both alive and not alive, and never alive, with rocks and glass and other things. And we saw squid and sea urchins and sea anemones and starfish and yeah, it is like being a kid and going back to we used to always go to Odeon Point, which is the New Hampshire one, but like you'd go to the coast and tide pool for the day as like part of your science class. It
Right?
was like that, but you're grown up and you still have the same excitement, so it's
Yeah.
nice.
And we ate some lobsters
And
and we
we ate
went on a
some
boat.
we ate some of those lobsters that we
We
saw.
did. But you're like supposed to do that though. It's Maine.
Yeah. So no, it was a great time. It was definitely, like I said, something I needed. And while we were gone, my roommates moved out. So no more TV at 100% and no more, oh, Jesus. So we got home and I turned on the TV and not only was it at 100%, but apparently they hit something to turn off subtitles. So they turned on the
Turn
subtitles
off subtitles?
not on purpose. So they didn't know what
Okay.
they were doing. Yeah. So they
Okay.
turned on the subtitles with audio thing where like it announces everything you do too, like every menu choice and everything. It is terrifying.
Did you turn it off?
Yes, I finally it took, but as I'm trying to find it, it's like menu, menu, menu. I'm like, oh my God, please stop.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yes, it was terrible. But yeah, so my parents have moved into their apartment, which is great. They are slowly unboxing their things and getting it set up. But yeah, they've been there for almost a week now. So that's good. And I've stopped in a couple times to just make sure
Check
they're all
in.
right, drop some stuff
Right.
off. A funny story I should have told you off air, but that's okay. We got a note from them, of course, when we got home, and my mom had written it, and she said, "Oh, sorry about the screen on the window in the mud room. I will replace it." So apparently, my dad had gone to town, and the dog had to go out. So my mom took the dog out. She was still in her pajamas, so she did not have her phone, and she locked herself out of the house.
Oh, she broke into your home.
So she tried to.
Oh,
So my mom is very, frail. So she, I don't know what she used, a stick or something, to knock the screen out of the mudroom window. But
okay.
that's still like, I don't know,
It's
from
high.
outside, like 4 feet
Yeah.
off the ground to the bottom of it. So we had a 5 gallon bucket that I put a trash bag in for their dog poop. So she thought she could stand on that and pull herself in, which she can't. She's a very frail woman. I had told them multiple times where the spare key at my house is, did not remember. And because she was in her pajamas, she did not have her phone. So she stood out on the back deck, or deck is,
The
platform,
steps.
stairs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing too comfortable about it. And waited there until my dad got home because she couldn't even call him, which was an hour and a half.
Oh no.
Yeah. And after the fact, I was like, why didn't, well, obviously I didn't know any of this until I talked to her. I was like, why didn't you look in the shed for something? Because I'm pretty sure my stepladder's in the shed.
Oh
So
yeah.
you could have at least used that to get in the house,
Right.
or something. I don't know. But also, she's a 70-year-old woman who was probably just more upset than anything at that time.
Yeah.
And
Well,
this,
and also like upset is like gives you brain fog. I feel like you
yes, for
don't think
sure.
clearly when you're pissed off.
For sure. And the screen was fine. It's like just a little bent. I'm like, nobody
Oh,
cares. It's fine.
yeah.
It's still in the window. Again,
Great.
who cares? So yeah, so all in all, great experience. Really happy I can go visit them and not have them living in my
In
house.
your house. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a big deal.
And then the last thing is, as we touched on last episode, and we've been trying to raise awareness of, we are doing a GoFundMe for Avode and Ubaka U Rwanda. We've gotten a lot of great response from it. We do have the links in our bio, also in my personal bio, for both the blog that Sully wrote and the GoFundMe, so you can find more information there. I posted basically my spiel from last episode as one of our reels. So if you want to listen to that again, I won't put you through it. We have gotten a lot of donations from both people that normally donate, which is great. We feel bad asking for more, but it's always wonderful. And also people that don't normally donate, which is even better because hopefully they see the work we're doing and spread the word again, because that's the biggest thing we're hoping for, is to get more people to understand the work that Vode does and what we try to do with Ubaka. But he is the heartbeat. So what we do, we help raise the money, but he literally does all the work. So anybody who has given to that, we really, really appreciate it beyond words, even though we try to send you thank you notes, and it's like, thank you for everything. Is that good? I'm like, it's so weird writing thank you notes too. It's like I always try to put in something personal. If I know you're like, hey, you're great. I'll see you in Maine. I don't know what else to say. Love your family. Okay, bye. So no, but yeah, thank you anybody who has done that. And you can find that on our Instagram, which again, the handle is Adult Book Club 21. It's all book club, all one word, and then the number 21. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on YouTube if you want to watch your content. Ben, see if you're looking now. I didn't know it was there. Well, I guess you have to listen to one of the episodes to know where we are. Or you can get a sticker, which now shows it, which we will also have at Dragon Con. So that is our spiel there, which means now it's time to get back to the book, which once again was My Friends by Fredrik Backman. And My Friends is the latest release from Backman. It was published in May 2025. Interestingly, it was released in America before it was released in Sweden. Which is strange. I feel like it's usually almost always the opposite for his stuff. But it is two different publishers, so who knows how all that works. He did mention that he struggled developing this story as the first draft contained, and I quote, about 82 parallel storylines and around 9,000 characters, end quote. So then he reworked it to focus on just 4 childhood friends. And while writing this, Backman struggled with his confidence as a writer and strongly considered retiring without publishing it. He has also stated that this may be his last book as he struggled with the stress and anxiety of the publishing industry and what is required to promote his work. This is terrible news. This is like your favorite
Devastating.
sports ball player retiring and saying, I'm never doing it again.
Yeah. What a loss to the world of not having any more of his books.
I, yeah, I like every time I'm in my bookstore, I go look just to see if there's
Yeah.
something I don't know about somehow that I haven't read by him yet.
Right.
So, hopefully that's not true, but there is nothing on the horizon at this point for him, at least according to the internet. If you're new to the podcast, this is our third time we have spotlighted one of his novels. We covered A Man Called Uwe on episode 39, and my grandmother asked me to tell you she's sorry on episode 51. Also, over 3 years since we did a Backman book, but to be fair, we read, I mean, I went through them like crazy. So it was tough to get, first of all, one that was an appropriate size, as the Beartown series is huge. And secondly, one that was different because like Britt Marie is here is kind of also in that same realm as my grandmother and Anxious People we could have done, but I read it because I am, I was digesting fool, eating everything. So on that note, Taja, if you want to read us the jacket, we will jump into our story.
All right. Make this big enough for me to see. All right. The world is full of miracles, but none greater than how far a young person can be carried by someone else's belief in them. Already gonna cry. All right. Most people don't even notice them. Three tiny figures sitting at the end of a long pier in the corner of one of the most famous paintings in the world. Most people think it's just a depiction of a wide expanse of sea. But Louisa, soon to be 18 years old and an aspiring artist herself, knows otherwise. She is determined to find out the story behind these three enigmatic figures. More than 2 decades before, in a distant seaside town, a group of teenagers find refuge from their bruising home lives by spending long summer days on an abandoned pier, telling silly jokes, sharing secrets, and committing small acts of rebellion. These lost souls find in each other a reason to get up every morning, a reason to dream, a reason to love. Out of that summer emerges a transcendent work of art, a painting that, after a chance encounter in an alleyway, will unexpectedly be placed into Louisa's care. She embarks on a surprise-filled cross-country journey to discover how the painting came to be and to decide what to do with it. The closer she gets to the painting's birthplace, the more anxious she becomes about what she'll find. Louisa's complicated life is proof that happy endings are sometimes possible, but they don't always take the form we expect them to. Fredrik Backman's signature charm, humor, and attention to the poignant details of everyday life are on full display in this funny, moving novel. His most heartfelt and personal tale yet, my friends, is a stunning testament to the transformative, timeless power of the art of friendship.
Nice. And I will say, as we get started here, maybe we'll have like a cry counter.
Oh my God, we should. Like a ticker in the...
see how this goes. Because just writing the rundown, I was getting misty-eyed.
I didn't even read your like spoiler portion because I was like, I don't want to cry again.
Honestly, it wasn't even that. As well as answering questions in
Oh.
spoilers. Because the way the story is written, and we'll get to it in spoilers felt more like a checklist, or it's like, okay, let's talk about this person, let's talk about this person, because the way the story is given to us is very disjointed.
Yeah.
I mean, it is in its own way, but it's kind of, we'll see, and we'll talk about Ted, the way he's telling the story. So sometimes a memory reminds him of another memory, and like to try to do that in spoilers, it would have been 3 or 4 pages. So it's like, okay, let's focus on the key parts and then hope that we break down. But before we get to that stuff, we have to get to the beginning parts. So our story focuses on 2 characters as far as our main now timeline, and that is Ted and Louisa. And they are connecting over a painting and the story of 4 childhood friends that inspired it. We meet Louisa first, so let's start there. What did you think of her?
I mean, she's great. She's just like very much giving strong female lead energy. She's young, so it shows. And she's had a really tough life, and it shows. It's just amazing that she like hasn't been fully broken by the world. Like she's got her damages, of course, and like she doesn't like to be touched, and she like obviously isn't very trusting. But like her, when we meet her, is just after she's lost her best friend to an overdose, and that is obviously like a huge portion of her, I don't want to say personality, but it kind of is. Like they were each other's person.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so does this count as like one or is it a half? Um, but I think she's amazing. I think that we talked about this before I started recording, and I'm probably going to say it like 16 times. This guy is just the most amazing at presenting characters that you are like fully 1000% invested in from go.
Yeah.
Um, and like we learn, this is obviously very typical of most writing, but you like learn about the character as they're moving through the world. But she's just really impressively strong for how young she is.
Yeah, and it was you see, as you were saying, she's incredibly young, she's incredibly mature at the same time. She's been forced to
Right.
grow up. But she still has that mindset of um
I'm a kid.
yeah, and the history of not being able to trust people, and we see that with
Yeah.
her relationship with Ted for a long part of it, where
Hmm.
she is literally waiting for the other shoe to drop. She's waiting for him to abandon her, or to hit her, or to do something that she's become so accustomed to adults doing, which is just heartbreaking. And like this book, through the present day and when talking about the children in the past, has so much trauma in it. So many different events are brought up that could break any one person, and we have some of our characters going through multiple ones, which is just it,
Rough.
it makes you feel for them, like you said, from go. And so for Louisa, she ends up running away from her foster home the day before she turns 18, because it's close enough. And as you said, about 3 weeks ago, she lost her best friend Fish because Fish had turned 18 before and got thrown out of the foster home. And then, couldn't Louisa couldn't be there with her the whole time. So she fell in with another group of people, and those people like to do drugs and dance and party and do all this and drink and everything. And Fish lost herself in that very quickly because, like Louisa, she had experienced trauma and didn't know, how to love and who to trust and how to live. I think that was like a constant theme throughout this, is just reality. Life is hard, and it really fucking is. So as you were saying, like with Backman, he makes you feel for these people immediately, but also he gives you and yeah, maybe not everybody has this kind of trauma. You don't find five people like this that all have it in a different way. Sure, maybe that's a little sensationalized, but I always believe, and this is just a cliche thing, you never know what other people are going through. And a lot of people have gone through things that you don't know about because, believe it or not, they don't want to fucking talk about it.
Right.
So you never know what other people have survived, or how they cope with their day to day. And I thought he did such an incredible job of giving us Louisa and that first interaction with the homeless man behind the museum or whatever, the
It was a
auction
church.
house.
Yeah.
Was it a church?
It was at a
In a
church, I
church,
thought.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that does sound right. And just that kind of friendly banter, whatever, and that connection that they create. Um, it's like hope. It's a young woman trying to find her next step, find her way, dealing with grief that will bury her if she allows it. And that kind of chance encounter obviously changes everything, and that's very story like, but it was just so powerful. And like her grief was so uh it's so heavy.
Palpable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we see it with Ted too, and like how they're kind of going at it
It
together
was
but separate. And like normally you see that where they're trying to help each other heal. And here it felt like neither one of them knew how to deal with it because they were so entrenched in their own, that they didn't know what to do about the other person. And they talk about, I think both of them said it at one point, where it's like, I can't take responsibility for you.
yeah.
Which is, makes sense from Ted, a 39-year-old, almost 40, looking at an 18-year-old girl. But for an 18-year-old girl to say the same thing to Ted, just shows kind of how compatible they really were. So, yeah, I loved her from go, and it was once again great to have a character that not only you rooted for, but that you really liked.
Yeah.
And like,
She was so endearing. Just
yeah,
like like you were saying before, like she's had to kind of grow up really quickly because of all the things that have happened in her life, but then she also has like sort of childlike wonder at a lot of things because there's so many parts of her life that she didn't get to experience in the normal way a child does. So
Yeah.
like she's kind of stunted in some of that. Um, and I think that it's just a really endearing package to have somebody who's like world smart-ish, you know, like she's got a lot of tricks up her sleeve, but then she also like is still a kid and is kind of like younger mentally in some regards than the 18 years that she has because she is still learning stuff. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, her experience on the train, first of all, her
Oh,
seeing her
so
town go by for the first time ever, and leaving that, that was powerful and like
like
something we experience in Rwanda with those boys when they've never been out of the city. Like I've seen that firsthand. It is
like
wild
the
to see.
wonder in their
Yeah,
eye.
to see somebody experience that and realize how big just this part of the world is.
Right.
But then the fact that she didn't realize there was toilets on the train or food carts. She
Or
thought it was
food.
just things in movies, you know? And like again, like you were saying, this is a girl who can pretty much break into anything, car, a house, whatever, knows how to survive, knows who to be wary of,
Yeah.
but didn't know there was toilets on trains. You know, like
And so frequently she'd be like, "Oh, I thought that was only in the movies."
yeah,
And it's really funny. Like, it's a funny statement because, of course, like you see so many things in the movies. Of course, you're gonna think like only flying horses are in the movies, but like these are things based in reality.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's just she was so precious.
yeah. And she was the perfect character to receive our story because
The,
any question you could think of, she had already asked 2 pages ago.
yeah,
Like she was very inquisitive, and like even how he pokes, like just so good at just giving you these little things where he was like, "Oh, and Louisa, you know, she was silent for the longest point ever at this point, which was 45 seconds before she asked or whatever." And again, just her relationship with Ted, where he would say something and she was like, it was like, and that was the kindest thing that Ted had said to her at that point. And it's like, and now this took
the
place.
record beats the
Yeah.
record for the kindest
Oh,
thing. I
God.
also really appreciate, and this might be what we were talking about before. We started recording when you were saying that people were complaining, they're wrong, that he's repetitive or whatever. Like there were lots of times where the way he described Ted's size, were like, and the sigh like could have blown like a tree down. And like,
Yeah.
I get it. I guess it gets a little redundant, but to me, that's like such a beautiful way to describe. Like I can picture a sigh. Like my dog does that. Like you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's just it's such an expressive way to show the react like that reaction.
And how it kept building. Yeah, and like,
Yeah.
you know, like it got progressively a stronger sigh.
Yes.
And again, you just feel that where it's he's his patience. And again, he doesn't know how to deal with
Right.
anyone, let
Right.
alone an 18-year-old that he's just met and somehow got bonded to because of the last dying wish of his best friend.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely incredible. So let's move on to Ted since we're touching on him. So he is our storyteller. He is the one that is giving us kind of the history of this painting. And to understand that, you need to know the history of the people in it. So what did you think of him and Louisa as they began their journey together? And we can also talk about his time with the artist too here.
So I think that he's the perfect juxtaposition to Louisa. Like he doesn't like to touch people. She doesn't like to be touched. He's a germaphobe. She's like a whatever. And like he's just so endearing in all things. I think that what you just said about him, you know, he is the narrator of um the story about the kids on the pier. And it's just so fitting that he's a history teacher because he's basically just telling the history of him and his friends. And like, oh, Ted. Like at first, I was like, okay, this guy is a little too sort of stereotypical, like germaphobe and like doesn't want to deal with this and whatnot. But like once he starts telling her the story and you're seeing his okay, what I liked about how he was narrating the story was that it was from his perspective, obviously, but the way that it was told was kind of like bird's eye view. So you were getting him as a kid, but not through his eyes, if that
Yeah.
makes sense, which
Yeah.
I very much appreciated because I think that that made the whole thing a little more well-rounded. I think that if he'd been like the full-on POV storyteller, um, his like role would have been diminished.
Yeah.
Um, which I don't think is accurate. God,
There's so
yeah,
much to get.
he's
There's
just yeah, he's
yeah.
just so endearing, and I think like his time with the artist, and that like what I don't remember if he was like legit telling Louisa about that or if that was just like us getting some insight into like their last few weeks together.
So he I think it's both. I think he tells her, but we get to see, especially we get to see the artist dying
Right.
through Ted's eyes and all that, and then he kind of goes into some of it throughout the story about their
Okay.
past few weeks together.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's just it's really it's really sad to see. I don't want to call it unrequited love because that's not quite right. Um, but I think that like the artist obviously didn't love him in the same way that he loved the artist.
Yeah.
But and he like clearly had come to terms with that a long time ago, and still was showing up. And does that count as another 0.5? Are we at one? No actual tears have happened yet. They've not, nothing has fallen.
I do think, as you're saying, he had come to terms with the love he gives is not what he's getting back, but he is in a way. Like there's no,
It's
um,
different.
yeah, for him, he is deeply in love with the artist,
Yeah.
romantically.
Yeah.
And for the artist, he is deeply in love with Ted because he is his best friend.
Yeah.
Um, and like they still hold hands and like they can share things and they share their emotions, but obviously I think Ted would have wanted a little bit more,
Yeah.
and the artist just wasn't that way. I don't think the artist was that way in general. Like we don't hear
Yeah.
about some like a lot of fancy romances he has or anything like that, and it just seems like he would say himself that he's unnatural, the artist. Like that's how he was brought up. And I think that that's just something that was never on the plate for him, like
Right.
nothing that he cared about.
Right.
So it's not like he's pulling it from Ted and giving it to someone else.
Right.
It's more just like that's not something he can give him, but he
Yeah.
gives him everything else.
Yes.
So,
Other love.
yeah, other types of love, like the
Yeah.
beautiful love of friendship. And there are those moments, especially when he's very sick and when he first wakes up, he mistakes Ted for, I'm going to
Yo.
say Jor because otherwise I'm going to say it wrong the whole time. It's
Yeah.
apparently Yoar,
You are.
but we're American and yeah, so I'm going to be bad about it.
It's
Um,
fine.
but we learn later on, this isn't super spoilery, that Yoar was his first friend, that they were together before Ted came in the picture. So
Mhm.
again, I never thought that was romantic either. I just think it was, he was missing
He was like pining for that
that
relationship.
other friend. Yeah. So but like their last moments together and how like laughter was such a big part of it, how the artist kept saying he had lived such a full life and such a long life and he was ready to go even though he was only 39 years old, and how he wouldn't let Ted be sad about that. And it was just so powerful to see that friendship still kind of holding strong and then completely understand why it would break Ted so
Oh my
badly.
God. Yeah.
Um, and how he talks about being the one left behind is always the hardest, that like he always feared being alone, and that his friends would leave him, and now he's stuck with this crazy girl that he doesn't know because the artist basically tells him to give the painting to Louisa, so he does that, and then you give a painting to a multi-million dollar painting to a
Yeah.
homeless girl. What else is she going to do? And that's kind of like this, odd pairing buddy movie that we find ourselves in.
I
As far as him being the storyteller, for me, I thought it made sense. And this is a little spoilery, but we learn, I think it was early on, that Ted didn't like to speak when he was younger, because of his accent, from a homeland that he didn't even remember, but he never really got rid of that accent. And it took him a long time to learn English. And even around his friends, it took him a long time to really open up. So I thought the fact that he had to be so open with Louisa, and it's the same thing as the Psy thing, where you see it build And at first, he's very controlled and very precise about what he's telling. But this is also how he's dealing with his grief. He just lost his best friend, too.
He's like reminiscing on his
Yeah.
own, like for his own purposes
Yes.
too.
He's trying to, I don't know, deal with what he's lost,
Process.
too. And he gets stuck in the story. And there's quite a few times where he's like, and he wished he didn't say that last part. Like he gives a
Yeah.
little bit more away than he wanted to. And reveals a little bit more of himself to Louisa. And that's how they slowly build that bond together as they start, you know, trust maybe is too strong of a word, but, start building a believability in each other, maybe.
I think that one thing that keeps sticking with me or like stuck with me right away was when the artist first tells Ted about Louisa. And he's like, she's one of us.
Yeah.
Like that was such a simple sentence, but it really like encompassed so much. And I think that it took Ted a little while to like get there, to really understand what the artist was talking about. I shouldn't say a little while. It was quick because like Luis is just always talking, and like the way that their rapport kind of got more and more natural
Mm.
was just so natural.
Yeah. I mean, the
Oh,
back.
it just seemed really believable. Like I could picture, like I have had, God, there's this one line from A Marvelous Light that I pointed out when we were reading that. Um, God, and I can only think of part of it and I don't want to butcher it, but it was basically um like this a fellow feeling. Like that, I know it sounds really hokey, but like there's just some people that you click with
Hmm.
like immediately or over a short period of time where you're like, these are my people.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel like everyone's probably experienced that at least to like some degree. Some people are lucky enough to experience it a lot, but I feel like I could very much relate to the like she's one of us
Yeah,
statement.
for
And
sure.
then like Ted kind of coming to that realization himself along the train trip and then later on when other people do too, and it's really great.
Yeah, their bickering back and forth was so like playful and easy that you felt that, like, again, it's another sign of that closeness before they're willing to admit it. Even before they're being mistaken for father and daughter, which
Right.
I think Ted especially is appalled by.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing too, which is minor spoilers too, but I can't not talk about Ted and think about this, where when the friends talk about their superpowers and Ted is unsure about his, and I forget what he actually says, and I think it's Yoar who tells him he's wrong and his superpower is loyalty.
Yeah.
He is the one that holds them together.
Yes, yes.
He is the one that shows up early to the crossroads every day to make sure that Yoar isn't there alone because
And
he
he brings the
knows,
cookies for the artist to eat.
yeah, because he
And
knows
he feeds the whole, like he's the home base.
he is. And his basement is where they can hang out and be
Eat
themselves
lasagna.
and, hide for as long as they need to because of their different situations. So yeah, that spoke to me a lot because now, again, Ted losing the one that he was loyal to and now is forced into this other situation where he's now, trying to figure this girl out. And because I think for him to love, it's a lot. He's not going to give that up freely. So because once he's in, he's in. And I thought that was just another very powerful moment in this story.
For sure. I think that there was also like maybe I don't remember if he'd already sort of been starting to have more of a rapport with her at this point, but there was that time when he was telling her about just like the crew hanging out in his house and like how his mom would make dinners and like leave them in the freezer. And he was kind of like effectively complaining that like his mom didn't have time for him and blah 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 and because his dad was always sick, and she pointed out like, do you think that maybe she was doing that because like do you think you had the room in the basement because they were trying
Yeah.
to protect you and all this stuff, and he's like, in all this time like I've never considered that as an option. And I think that was maybe like not necessarily a turning point, but I think that that sort of reorganizing of thought for him was a nice exchange between the two of them. Like he's
Yeah.
giving her all of this stuff to think about and to learn, and she just gave him like kind of a whoopsie
Yeah.
daisy.
Hey,
Yeah.
not to know you for 2 days and totally spin your world, but here
Hmm.
you go. Yeah, that, well, again, just, yeah. So many good things. We'll get into more in spoilers. So moving on, what did you think of how the book was set up with Ted and Louisa taking a trip and Ted telling the story of their childhood as they got to know each other?
I mean, I really liked how natural it felt. It was like using narrative narratively. Um, and it felt like, we're I don't always love those books where like one chapter is in the past and the
Yeah.
one chapter is in the present, and this was like a really nice way to flow sort of seamlessly between the two and not have it be a jarring thing. Um, I think that it really lent itself to that exchange of storytelling, that sort of like
Yeah.
oral tradition of like lore being passed from one generation to another, honestly. Um, and yeah, I don't know, I really respect the method. And it made reading it really easy because it felt natural.
Yeah, it flew by. And I think
Yeah.
what helped it was it wasn't just those two timelines. We had present day, we
Yes.
had 25 years ago, but then we had Louisa, her past,
Right.
mostly in like the last month or two or
Yeah.
last couple of years, her time with Fish,
Right.
as we get to learn more about that relationship. And then we have the last 2 years of Ted and the artist getting sprinkled in there as well. So it was more that, and stuff still happened present day. Like we
Right.
had
Right.
Louisa forcing him to flirt with the conductor, and their own little adventures that happened on this train trip,
Right.
which gets a little extravagant in its own way. So like I thought that it did well with kind of, and if you think about like all the memories he's sharing, like what do you remember? You remember the highlights. Like, yeah, there are those times of just him being in the basement with the artist while he's drawing for hours because he doesn't want to go home. And like they touch on that. But a lot of their stories are about like childhood mischief and
Yeah.
those moments that create those bonds and the other people that come into your life. So it's not like we're ever going back and experiencing a Tuesday for no reason. And I think that
Yeah.
helped. The flow, I can't imagine, again, it felt like we were in Ted's brain, where it was like this actually triggers a different
Trigger
memory
something
that I'm going
else.
to jump and tell you about that, and this
Right.
moves to there.
But I can't tell you that until I tell you this other
Yeah,
thing.
it felt very natural. And then like we do get a little bit inside of himself where he's like, "Oh, I'm going to tell her all of this, but I'm going to make sure I don't mention the knife."
Right.
Where we get that classic Backman foreshadowing, where there's the summer we became adults because it started and ended with a burial. So you're waiting
Yeah.
for that. This is
That
would be the
carrot.
last. This would be the last time that I swam together with all my friends. Or I would only have one more time where we would all be together, whatever. Classic Backman stuff, just making
Yep.
you sit on pins and needles, turn
Yep.
those pages to
Yep.
realize what's going on. So this is like this divisive thing that I found in the Goodreads reviews afterwards, where a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's repetitive, it's boring, it doesn't go anywhere. I'm hearing a
Bullshit.
story about people's past. How does that make sense?" It's like, first of
What do
all,
you
I
mean?
don't know what you mean because all books, believe it or not, well, not all, because there is actually nonfiction, but a lot of books are made up, right? So what are we reading anyway? You're reading for the story, and we're just learning the story a different way.
And
Uh,
it was like such an organic way. I like can't, those people who have a problem with that are fully wrong.
I just wonder because he's become such a bigger name, if this was like their first experience and they didn't understand his writing style and like just, I don't know, we're unprepared for it, but it
I
never.
suppose, but like they're still wrong.
We're also going to carry the flag for this guy,
Oh
so
my God, yeah.
we are not unbiased in our opinion.
No, not even a little
Uh,
bit.
But yeah, it was just, I thought the way it was set up, the way he leaves those carrots, I wanted to know, I wanted to see where this journey was taking them. I wanted to know what happened 25 years ago. I
Yep.
wanted to know more about Louisa. Like every single one of these things that he touched on, I was excited to go back to. And like you said, sometimes in those other stories where it's ABC, 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 sometimes you get back to B and you're like, I don't want to fucking be here. You know?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
never felt that way with this story. And again, I think it just goes with the storytelling where it just flowed properly. Good
Yes.
talk.
No,
Right.
no, it really did
No, I
though.
meant me, just to be clear. Good talk, Russ. I was like, load. Anyway.
But I think that that's accurate. I mean, it really was um true to reality. Like I
Yeah.
think that if you're telling, so I absolutely applaud his memory, because I don't have skills like that. I am 40 and I don't remember 25 years ago as vividly as he does.
To be fair, a lot of highlights in that year, in that summer. It
Oh,
might stand out
sure.
to you if you went through, some of
I
that.
suppose. I don't know. I don't even have faith in that. Like I'm I'm a broad strokes kind of painting here with
Yeah.
my memories. But yeah, I think that it's definitely believable, like you say. This was a formative summer.
Mm.
Lots of really important, like this is the tipping point for a lot of things. So it makes sense that this would be sort of ingrained, like drilled into his memory, but at the same time, he probably hasn't spoken it out loud
Yeah.
or, processed any of the emotions until he's having to tell the story to somebody who doesn't know these people, which I absolutely loved how frequently he would be telling the story, they'd have to stop for some reason or whatever, and Louisa would get so upset because he's like, this happened 25 years ago, why are you upset? And she's like, it's happening for me now.
Yeah.
And I was like, same girl. Like, it's also happening for me. That's why I'm a hot mess. Um, but I think that that's such again, sort of the oral tradition of storytelling and
Yeah.
the passing of the lore and stuff, like the things that the weight is different for Ted than it is for her because he's already lived it. He's come to terms with some of those emotions. He's had 25 years to sit with the things that happened that summer, and she's getting it all fresh.
Yeah.
And so again, like it felt natural, it felt organic how we as the reader are in Louisa's shoes and learning about these people and these circumstances at that moment. And it's so he's also a very good storyteller.
Yeah. The other thing, I loved the focus on laughter,
Yeah.
and how that played such a pivotal role, both in like the artist's last days, and like Ted talks about how stuck he was
Hmm.
before he went and lived 2 years with the artist, and they kind of fell back into that role of like he talks about it with Louisa, how he still, the artist, still wanted to be a child basically, and
Yeah.
would act so immature and tell these terrible jokes and would do all these dumb things just to make Ted laugh, and how much he filled up a room, and how Ted wasn't that way, and how he needed to be reminded to be a kid again, and how like I think one of the themes early on is how like teenagers are the perfect age because kids look up to teenagers, they want to be teenagers, teenagers know they have it great, and adults look at teenagers and think, god fuck, I wish I could like have that, I don't know,
Back.
uh
Less
back
responsibility.
less least responsibility and ability to move. Like when Louisa was running and Ted is trying to run with her and she's making fun of him, he's like, I'm old. It's like, yeah. So the laughter throughout, and just how that, again, how he described the size, he describes the laughter in very beautiful ways, where you can see it more than just somebody laughing. They talk about how powerful a giggle was or something like that. Like there's so many just sentences in this story. Like if I was a doohickey person, this book would be full. I almost thought about it at one point. I should have written it down, but there was one line specifically that would just like blew my mind, and I was just like,
There
it's a
are
sentence.
so
Huge.
many in these books. Like any Backman book has, so I would do I do highlight on my Kindle, but I can't really like easily see how
Yeah,
many, it's
yeah.
much tougher to look through.
So yeah, powerful stuff. It's gonna get more powerful in spoilers. Before we get to that, you have to get to know your podcaster question, and this is called Test Taja's Broad Strokes Memory. So Louisa talks about how Fish's idea of heaven is that we all get to collect these incredible moments in our lives, which she called nows. And when you die, you get to relive your most wonderful now. I was wondering if there are a couple of moments or days that stand out to you that would be considered for your now.
So terrible at this. Okay, so here's my broad strokes. Basically all of the Thailand trip that Barry and I went on, which I know is a cop out a little bit, but I guess Thailand sort of specifically, but just in general, like anytime you're getting to experience something like new and different and amazing. Um, and I think I've talked about this before, like my study abroad experience like taught me how to do more of that, like creating a now, if that makes sense. So like if there's an opportunity to do something that I'm not going to have again or I don't know if I will have again, I want to take it
Yeah.
because I don't want to regret not doing it. Like there was years ago we went on a cruise, Barry and I, and we did a little excursion where you could like touch a stingray, like swimming with them.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it. And I was like, when is this gonna happen again?
Yeah.
Like you gotta just do it. And I like to think that's one of his. I don't know, but it's such a cool experience to be able to do that. Um, I also wrote down um yeah, I guess doing something that feels hard or scary, and then like the feeling that comes after that, like realizing that you can do it, or like you can do hard things, but like that's legit.
Yeah.
When the freaking Tent Ridge Trail is in our most recent trip, something that um was pretty remarkable, but also like terrifying,
Yeah.
and then shared experience of joy, like with Barry or with my friends. And two of the things that I wrote down were sitting by the fire with friends and doing six at Dragon Con. Because again, like the shared experience of joy, like I I love feeling joyful. Obviously, who doesn't love that feeling? But when you can be in that feeling with others that you care about, that's like
Yeah.
even better.
Yeah. And it was like a complete high without
Yes. Yes.
any kind of,
Substance.
the
Yeah.
outside forces were just people giving
Yeah.
us energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was I would that's such a remarkable feeling, and I don't think it was just like I wouldn't call it being the center of attention, like I don't think it was necessarily just that, like there wasn't spotlight or whatever, but at the same time the yeah, the high that came from sharing that with other people.
It was definitely our first success story at
Yes.
DragonCon too, where we had tried a lot of different things, and that a very simple costume but a brilliant
Mhm.
idea really turned
Yeah.
into something bigger. So, yeah, it's also like that culmination of effort, and now we know
Yeah.
what to strive for.
I also had, sorry, I realized I wrote down another one, being in magical places with wonderful people. And I was thinking about specifically that time that the four of us went to Montreal for that Comic-Con,
Yeah,
and then like a bunch of happy accidents happened,
yeah.
where there's like a jazz fest and all like that, where there's happy accidents like that. That's very much a now.
The Comic-Con was a happy accident.
Oh, yeah.
We had decided to go to Montreal, and then that just happened. Like I think we knew about it before we went up there,
Yes.
but I think it was like after we had planned it, it was like, oh shit, this is also happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that whole like that kind of thing where it's just sort of serendipitous, like all the chips are falling exactly where they need to, which like kind of a rarity, I think, but God, is it satisfying.
Yeah. Hard days to follow. For me, it's all about the people I'm with. Those are like the nows that I want to keep. So I wrote down a couple days here. The day at Spring Fling after COVID, where we did all the parties in one day, was such a fun day. And also it was the perfect way to, I think it was that technically the year after. I don't remember
Yeah, I think
how
it
it
was the
worked.
year after.
But that day where it was just like we had a very strict schedule and people stuck to it, and we did a lot of just really ridiculous things, and it all somehow worked out. really, really well. So that is a day with the Weird family that like I will constantly think back on, and just because of how ridiculous it is. And it's not something I ever want to try to do again, but it is something I would relive again for sure.
Sure.
Um, it's also a time where I think Alden came back from one of his, I don't know if it was a deployment or if he was just back home for a little bit. I think we must have been old enough to drink, I think. So he had read that Cadillac Mountain in Acadia National Park is the first place on the eastern seaboard to see the sunrise. So we got in the bus and we drove out to Acadia National Park, which is Matt's place plus an hour and a half.
It's
And,
far.
and we found this like pull off. We parked the bus and we hiked Cadillac Mountain in the dark. And we had flashlights and glow sticks, and we were not prepared. We had like one backpack just with beer in it,
Nice.
and we hiked up the mountain. We did this just dumb shit for, hours, and we get up to the top of the mountain, and then you're just kind of got that energy, and there's no real comfortable place to sleep, so we're just awake telling stories and reconnecting. And so you fall asleep for a couple hours, and we wake up to see the sunrise, and that's when all the cars drive up the road that there is on Cadillac Mountain to see the sunrise
That you didn't need to hike.
that we didn't know about. And so you see the sunrise, and we're like, that's really beautiful. And then all these people get in their car and drive away. We're like, we have to fucking hike down a mountain. That was a rough day afterwards.
Yeah.
But that just such a dumb experience night that I always look back on. Another one was my second first day in Rwanda, and Sully told me about this, where meeting the kids for the first time is powerful. Going back for the first time is even more so, because now there's some level of comfort with you, and you fulfilled a promise. You said you were going to come back, and you did. And we stay, up in a Airbnb away from the home. So I was walking down, and when you walk down, you walk by their school. And so kids are waving, and there's a bunch of kids. It's not just our kids. So there's a bunch of kids waving, whatever. And I'm just walking down waving. And I turn the corner and I'm headed down. And then this one kid comes running down this hill. And he's like, Russell, Russell, Russell. And it's one of our boys named Tom, who is, I mean, they're all favorites, but I love Tom so much. And he gives me this big hug. And he's like, you're back. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm back. And he's like, okay, go back to school now. And he runs up the hill. And it's like,
Just needed a hug.
yeah. So that's another, just getting that moment with him, because Sully was like, oh, it sucks you're not going to be there when the kids are home. They're going to come home and see you, which is cool. But like to see their excitement. And I was like, I still did.
Yeah.
So that was powerful. And then lastly, Amanda, like in her older years, has been getting a little bit more silly, which I enjoy. And video, it was when we were on our 10-year, we'd stayed down in Connecticut for our 10-year anniversary. And we went out for a day and we did some like nature walks and whatever. And she wanted to get this picture of a blue heron. And she just started dancing and singing to herself, trying not to be suspicious, so the bird wouldn't fly away. And it was the silliest thing. And I just started recording it because I thought it was funny what she was doing. And like it was perfect. I zoomed right in on her after the bird flew away, and she goes, I was suspicious. And I just love that moment to look back on. So
That's
yeah.
so
Now you've heard us gush. Let us know in the comments what nows you would like to relive if you could, if that's your sort of heaven. And on that note, we're going to move into spoilers. And this is probably where the emotions will come in, folks. So before we do that, we have your song, and it goes like, this is the pot that we're going into spoilers. If you don't know the book, get out, because this is the pot that we're going into spoilers. It's time to learn what these burials are all about and what's going to happen in spoilers. So, and I told Taja, like, this is a little bit more bullet pointed because I can't tell the story the way Ted does. So I'm sure there's plenty to cover. In the end, we learned the full story about what happened to our childhood friends, how together the three of them pushed the artist to create the painting that summer, and how they were so blown away by it, they snuck it into the local museum to prove he belonged there. We learned that Yoar gets a brand new bike for his birthday and sells it to buy all the supplies the artist will need. And on that day, both he and his mother had to... Oh, So let me try that again. We learn that Yoar gets a brand new bike for his birthday and sells it to buy all the supplies the artist will need. Also on that day, both he and his mother had decided enough was enough and that they would kill his abusive father. But an accident down at the docks left him disabled and a new man that could no longer raise his hand against them. We learn about Ali and how she lit up their world like a firecracker and was Yoar's first and last love. She would move at the end of the summer 25 years ago and end up a surfer who disappeared in the ocean a few years later. The artist would get help from a temporary janitor named Christian, who reignited his love of art in the few days they spent together before he died. But Christian's mother, who is an art historian, would be the bridge to getting the artist into art school and launching his career. The artist, who we learned they called Kim Kim, traveled the world after art school and found his own voice. But when both his parents died in the same week, he returned home, believing he had seen the world and would stay in their small town again. Yoar would have none of it and ruined their friendship by screaming every terrible thing he could think of at Kim Kim to make sure he left and didn't come back. He was too big for their shitty town, and though they did talk on the phone eventually, the two best friends never saw each other again. Yoar lived much longer than he ever thought and took care of his father until he died naturally. On the way home from the funeral, he saw a man beating his wife in front of their child, and he stepped in and beat the man so badly he almost died. Yoar was sent to prison but eventually released under house arrest because the prison was too overcrowded. Because of this, he couldn't see the artist once he got sick. Yoar couldn't go to him, and Kim Kim was too sick to travel. Ted was stabbed by a student while protecting another one. The trauma sent him spiraling until Kim Kim told him to take a vacation and spend some time with him. They would live together for the last 2 years of the artist's life, and Ted would hold his true love when he passed. When Ted and Louisa make it to the hometown, they find Yoar, and he helps finish the story. Ted gets Christian's mother, and she helps Louisa decide what to do with the painting. In the end, they sneak it back into the local museum, as this is a piece that is meant for the world, not one person. Christian's mother then pulls the same strings for Louisa, and she goes to art school where she flourishes. She too travels the world and becomes famous. Our story ending with her calling Ted in the middle of the night to tell him that she has found another young artist. One of us, as she puts it. So, since there is so much to these stories, I wanted to wait till spoilers to talk about them. Basically, we're just going to go into the story of each character here one by one. So this may be more, yeah. I love when I talk in the middle of what I wrote and I stop. So anyway, this may be more winding than usual because everything's intertwined and whatever. But I did want to start with the artist Kim Kim. And what did you make of him?
It was interesting how I felt like we knew of him but didn't. Like, for so much of the book he's referred to as the artist. We didn't even know his name. That was like an interesting shift, I guess. I felt like once we learned his name and that like the sea yacht was like their names all together kind of thing, that I don't know, it didn't really change my perspective of him, but I was like, it made things a little more clear in that I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with that, other than to say that I think in general he really like seemed like he grew into himself, with all of his traveling and art school and just kind of getting to experience the world outside of their town, and his parents who had been telling him his whole childhood that he was like weird and different and shouldn't be that way. And I appreciated that he seemed to get comfy with himself. Like at the end of his life, he was very pleased with how long of a life he had, even though you could argue 39 is not a long life. But that he was, yeah, his like lack of fear of death was, I don't know, inspiring and touching. And I think his ability to have those lighthearted moments with Ted at the end were genuine, but I also think were good for Ted. To like, he was in a good place.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know, it's a lot. It's a lot to be said for that with somebody or for somebody who's going through a terminal illness.
Yeah, I think the decision to refer to him as the artist, like he's the main character in a way because he's
Right.
the one that all his friends are trying to
It's
push
like
up.
centered around him.
Yeah,
This
because the group in a way revolves around him. He's the glue. He was friends with Yor first. They were childhood friends. When Ted comes into the picture, Ted and the artist have a much better relationship than Ted and Yor. So because of that, like everything they do, as we touched on earlier, is about him. Make sure that he eats enough. Make sure that he knows how great he is. Make sure that he gets the fuck out of this shitty town.
So I feel like, can I just, so I think that the artist is like the little, like baby bird that the whole group is trying to like wean, and like send out. And I think Ted is arguably the glue, but that I think the artist is like the the golden egg that everyone's trying to protect. Does that make sense? Like,
That's yeah, I mean that's fair because Ted will eventually is the one that kind of keeps them all together, make sure they're not all going crazy. I just mean like he's the reason the artist is
the
like the
reason that
reason,
they're all,
yeah.
yes.
He's their purpose, maybe is a better way
Yeah.
of putting it.
Yeah.
The fact that he struggled with his own worth so much, especially when he was younger, and by the time he gets older, like he, I think it is a little bit of Backman looking in the mirror and saying, like, is this what I'm worth? Like, people want just what I create. He talks about how eventually rich people were just buying his unfinished works before he could
Right.
even finish it because they, he seemed to be breaking. So they wanted to have his last work because then it'd be worth something. It was no longer art, it was money, and that wasn't what he wanted to do. And he talks about how he was spiraling, and
Mhm.
how when Ted calls from the hospital after waking up from surgery from being stabbed
Oh,
multiple times by a student, he had almost drowned in his bathtub after almost overdosing on pills in his cabinet, because he wasn't sure he wanted to do this anymore. Like the focus on how fragile he is the
yeah.
entire time and how he's not ready for the world, and
Yeah.
he's got to get out there, but at the same time it could break him, but he's just too big to be stuck here, and he'll never survive here either. He's not going to be able to survive a harbor job or this kind of town. I think the idea of keeping his name a secret, it's similar to how he never mentions the hometown. Like there's so
Yeah.
much he doesn't actually specify here, and I think because of that, you then focus more on Ted and Yawar and Ali and Louisa, and even Christian gets a name, even though he's only with us for such a short time. So I think that adds to the mystery, sure, as you're like, okay, but what's his name? Obviously, we're going to find out at some point. But
Right.
on the other hand, just having him be the artist kind of gives him that larger than life feeling where it is about him, but it's not. It's about actually the other ones and what they're doing for him.
Yeah.
Uh,
I also appreciated, I think I maybe already said this, how like his name, his nom de plume, so to speak. I don't think that's the right term if you're an artist, but like his artist's handle is C Yacht. And like that's how Louisa knows him. And so like when she learns his real name, she feels a little affronted to be like, oh, but how do I parse this if like he a totally different person? But then the way Ted describes it of like him, the artist, being like, I am me with you guys and nobody else gets to see that. And
yeah.
I appreciated that the two things were separate.
Yeah, did you see that coming at all? Did you get the
Nope,
no.
super didn't.
As soon as we met Christian, I was like, okay, I know what C yacht means.
Damn.
Well, yeah.
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 Shit. No, I didn't. I was like,
Just I think at one point Ted or somebody mentioned it was Yoar, Ali, and Ted. And I was like,
yeah.
okay, well, there's your Jat. You
Well,
know.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
they say that, but like I didn't know until they said that.
Okay. Well, no, I meant like they say it before that too. Like I kind of got an inkling again. Once we met Christian, I was like, okay. But at some point, he like lists them out, and he lists them out that way, and he's not talking about their name. But like I thought that was a very specific way to
Oh,
kind of reinforce that
interesting.
I was on the right way. His time with Christian, well, obviously so powerful because he's getting beaten down by the owl, who is their art teacher, who's a cunt.
I
Uh,
really wished that at the end he'd had a little, because he has a little like epilogue kind of thing about other people. I really
yeah.
wish he'd like done something with the owl of like how fucking what a
Yeah. Tara, just the, and it was interesting because was it Louisa? Somebody's like, is that why you wanted to be a teacher? Because you saw how
Yeah,
bad of a teacher, how a bad teacher could really set somebody the wrong way. And but he also sees how a good teacher could, obviously, with Christian's mother.
right.
I just so his time with Christian, where they spent 3 days painting the side of a building that they're supposed to whitewash, but he sees it, and or Christian sees it, and he can't do that, so he starts painting it too because he's an artist as well. But he's also addicted to partying, and he is the one that kind of first of all he sets up his mother for this meeting, and like his just sidetrack on Christian, his whole side story where his mother answers the phone every night on the first ring because she's so worried that something's going to happen to him because she knows that he can't be contained. He's like very much like Yoar. He's living his life in fast forward
Yeah,
because he knows he doesn't have much time with it.
yeah.
And for him to call her the night before he dies to tell her that he has found one of us, and
That
all
chapter
that.
destroyed me.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Uh, Again, not even a secondary character,
No.
like a tertiary,
Well,
bringing you
like
to tears.
the thing you were reading about like at the very beginning of this podcast about like how he had pared this down. Like this is his magical power of like taking teeny tiny characters and making them so huge and so important and like so impactful. Like obviously he was an important piece of Kim Kim's life and like set him on, I wouldn't say set him on this path, but helped him along this path and like to spend such a small amount of pages on this one character that has oh my god, like what a magician.
But he does a great job too, making it mean more by having his mother remain in the story,
Yes,
by having
that's
that
true.
connection happen.
That's true.
But yeah, just Christian's influence on the artist in a time when he needed it most, and how that becomes his calling card is the skulls, because that was Christian's tattoos on his arm. And how when he meets Louisa and she's spray painting the back of the building and he's so impressed with her insects and he adds skulls, and then Ted later says it's the first time he's seen him paint skulls in years. Yeah, so
Destructive.
so many moments.
Ugh.
Um, how much how quickly he cared for Louisa and knew she was someone who needed help. How
Yes.
he also, I think, knew that Ted needed something, right? Like Ted didn't know what he
A
was going to do.
task.
And like forcing Louisa on him, I don't know. No way Kim knew what that would do. But the fact that he knew that it would probably be good for Ted. It's like, again, like you said, kind of dying the way he did, where he's like, some of his last words are, does this coffin make me look fat? Like constant laughter through the end because yeah, he's doing that for Ted. He's being strong for Ted once more, and setting him up with Louisa was such a strong move. So
Yeah.
obviously it's our story too. I get it, but come on, it was powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on, we have Yoar, who we probably should have talked about pre-spoilers because he's such a big part of the story, but there's just so much
Three
mystery.
spoilers. I like fully expected him to be dead.
Yes. Can't believe he wasn't.
Yeah.
So what'd you make of Yoar as we got his whole arc?
I mean, like what a Backman move to not have killed this character. Love you are. I think the carrot dangling situation of like the knife for so long and then finally hearing that story resolve took a turn I fully wasn't expecting. Right up until like even in the moment I was like, wait, what? I was
Yeah,
also listening at that point, so it was a little like muddy. Um, but it's so remarkable and yet also very true to his character, I think, that after his dad's accident, he took care of him.
yeah.
Um, I loved his relationship with his mother. And I loved that in the end, his mom found an actually nice man.
Happy ending. Yeah.
A happy ending for her. She totally deserves it. And that he, I don't want to say gets a happy ending because arguably there are some things that are not great, like his whole alcoholism thing and being on having an ankle monitor, but he's still clearly a really, really good person, and he's so protective of people. I loved that the reason that he was in jail and has the ankle monitor, like the dad or whoever it was, the grandpa that contacted him was like, she's doing well. And like just that little thread, like closing that loop was so satisfying. I think his um character growth, the fact that he remained alive or remains alive, um, is a testament to growth because I think like it's like one of the characters in Beartown that like didn't expect to live very long.
Yeah.
You know, like just assumes that they're like a piece of shit and the world doesn't need them and blah blah blah. Um, and he's kind of not standing up to that, but he's failing miserably at the thing that he assumed he would be, the path he was going to be taking, and I love that for him. I love that him and Ted are reconnecting over Louisa. I loved that they pool their resources, which were mostly Ted's,
Yeah.
and get her where she needs to go. And he's so endearing. They're all so freaking endearing.
Yeah, I thought he was just the heart of the group.
Yeah.
How he carries the responsibility for all his friends on his shoulders.
Not
And
just his friends, like his mom too, like
yeah,
pretty much everybody he meets.
and how he pushes away the artist by telling him he can't be responsible for him anymore, you know?
Okay, that's the one for you.
Yeah. This is the part I was worried about.
Mhm.
The spoiler section here. Uh, he's 14 years old. And he's looking after the world, and he's thinking they're building up to it because August, his old man goes on vacation, basically the harbor shuts down or whatever, and he knows that he is going to drink himself to the point where he's going to either beat his mother to death or Yoar is going to have to kill him. So he needs to get the artist out of town before that happens. And that's the whole storyline we're fed of 25 years ago for so long. And like he even does the Backman foreshadowing of the group of men from the harbor standing around because something awful has happened in that
Yeah.
house that they knew was coming.
And like Ted and somebody else were talking about like how quick like the human body's so fragile. It just like
Yep.
just one little bash. And I was like, this is taking, I mean, like this is the turn I expected it to take.
Yep.
And then it was like,
And he talks about how, so like the day they go to the museum to hang the picture, because Yoar's the whole point of this painting is because there's a competition for kids, but he never read it all, and it's for you got to be 13 or less.
I think he also didn't really understand like that like I don't know.
It's Yoar.
Yeah.
He just needed the artist to know he belonged.
Yeah.
So they take the painting that they can no longer enter in the competition, break into the museum, and show it. Is that why they went there? Or they went there, I think, before to be like, hey, someday your painting is going to be here. Maybe that's what it was. They stole his dad's car. I forget, whatever. And when they come home, that's when all hell's broken loose at the house. And we learn how easy it is to kill somebody. And his mother is just sprawled out on the floor.
Laying in his, yeah, on his floor.
Yeah. And then we learn about his father, which, the best case scenario, literally here, because then knowing, like, so that day at the museum, he keeps checking the weight in his backpack and to know the knife is there. And then he finds the bar of soap and he realizes that the knife is not there because his mother, again, mothers know everything. She had found it and hid it because she was planning on using it because she also knew that they wouldn't survive another August. Like all of that was just so much.
It was a
And
lot.
how they would both be beaten nightly when this man, if, assuming he came home on the nights he didn't come home, he talked about how the first time he was going to kill him, he never came home. And so like he just spent that whole night on edge thinking he was going to kill his father that night for him never to show up, which is its own kind of pain. Um, but how he would get beaten so badly and his mother would use so much makeup and people would always comment on her looks and how he talked about her back must have been so big because of how many people talked behind it about such a fucking kind woman who was just trying to survive. And for Yoar, how he would just, I'm not crying on that one. And for Yoar, how this is just residuals. And he talked about how he would jump into every football tackle at recess
Yeah.
to cover his bruises and make sure that, I mean, everybody knew. And we see that with Kim's father as
That no, that like tiny little piece of like those men from the harbor, specifically Kim's father, because he lost two fingers. It's such a dangerous job, but he's like the only one that like when they're I think they're in the hospital
yeah,
afterwards, and Yor is like shaking all their hands and like looking them in the eye, and like every one of them is like not looking him
yeah.
in the eye because they all knew what was going on. And Kim's father's the only one and like says something. I was absolutely destroyed. Like,
And what does COR use that moment for? To tell him, hey,
tell him about.
maybe you should say that to your son, because that's again the kind of friend he is. Yeah, so Kim's father saying, I'm sorry for not saying something, and
Mhm.
I think Yoar is telling the story at this point. He's like, I'll never know if he meant maybe he
About.
hesitated a moment when the beam, because it's a steel beam that hits his father in the head and changes, basically I think disables him
Yeah.
basically, but he's still alive. And they make such a point of how everybody at the harbor, you got to know that they have their back, which is either if a fight happens they're going to step in, or if something goes wrong they're going to yell watch out. And Yoar doesn't know if Kim's father ever means because he didn't say watch out because he knew what was going on at the house, or because he knew what was going on in the house and he never said anything about that because Yoar's father had saved Kim's father. Be great if they had names.
Yeah.
When a machine started eating his hand, basically, and he lost two fingers, but he could have lost his entire arm if Yoar's father wasn't there to pull him out. So there's that, you know, uh,
Brotherhood or
yeah,
whatever.
believe owing him something where you're not going to call the police on it, even though even the police know what's going on there. Um, yeah, him being alive at the end is fucking Bose. And I'm here for it. As,
Oh, you are being alive,
yeah,
not the
yeah.
guy. Yeah.
I think that his because Ali's not around, like that's again just life kicking you in the nuts. Like how I think Ted mentions at one point, he's like, that's when I realized that they had kissed before, uh,
That was
randomly. And then Louisa points out to Yoar later on that Ali was his first love. And he says, no, she was my last love. Just heartbreaking shit. And as you were pointing out, yeah, so he gets into a fight, or he beats a guy for beating his wife in front of his kids. And then when he's in jail, he gets a letter from the woman's father, the grandfather of the child, letting him know that they have gotten away from him and thanking him for what he did. Still think he shouldn't be in jail for that, but
no, I agree.
better than all the other things. I was like, what do you mean he's got an ankle bracelet? Like, what did you
Yeah.
do with your anger you are? And like how they constantly described him as fighting like a gang. Like I think they even say like that guy
The
said that he
guy said that it was
fought by
five
five
people.
guys or
And then
something
he
like
like turned himself in.
that. Yeah, because they'd never know. They never would have known that it was just one guy doing it.
Yeah.
Um, how he still has laughter in the end, where when they have Kim's funeral and he gets let out because they let you off, they let you out for funerals. And he said, can we pretend Ted's dead tomorrow? I really want to go to a movie. The fact that they still have that through everything they've grown up through and been through, and like how he even mentioned it wasn't until he was caring for his father late on that he finally called him dad, because he was always the old man before that, and it wasn't until he was
He
like
didn't want to take
literally,
like ownership of it.
yeah,
Yeah. I think one of those in that same vein when he's telling Lisa about, and she calls it, she's like, you took care of him, didn't you? And he's like, I did it because when I like he was obviously changed, but like the hate was gone from his eyes.
yeah.
That also broke me. Man, he's a good dude.
Yeah, he is. He's the bull in the china shop that you want for and like how he blames himself for the owl
Yeah.
picking on the artist because he pointed out the owl's shittiness
flaws.
basically, and he
Yeah.
knew he couldn't affect Yor in any way except attacking his friends. And then how he talks about how he wasn't there to protect them on certain days. Like he carries so much of this
So
shit.
much. Well,
Uh,
it's like how he said his mom's back must be so big, but his shoulders must be so wide to like be carrying everyone all the time.
yeah. And then, as we pointed on in spoilers, how he sells the bike to get all the art supplies that they'll need, and he has the
Ugh.
artist point out what they need.
And it's like the first
He so
bike he ever had that was his, and
and his mother sold her only possession to buy him the bike, which was her figure skates because she was a skater. And oh my God, how Yoar was really good at skating, but he didn't want to
yeah,
show that off
he couldn't
because
afford it.
then he'd play hockey. And if you're barely affording, if you can't afford toilet paper at the end of the month, how are you going to afford hockey equipment? So he would just be okay at it.
Like 14-year-olds shouldn't have to experience that.
There was a lot to him. And this is like, that's just, it's similar to how Ted tells the story. You bring something up and you remember something else and you remember something else. And I kind of knew we'd be all
Doing
over the place here. And this is why you have to save Yoar for spoilers, because he was just so, uh, he was the friend you really wanted. That's for sure. And everything he did, and how he was so proud when they saved that little bird, how him and his mother outsmarted his father,
oh.
and saved that little bird because he saw how happy it made them because his father was an asshole.
And then when he was leaving after dropping it off at Ted's, and Ted was just like, "I love you." Ooh, this book is so precious.
So, moving on to our next one, which we haven't talked about yet, which is Ali. She shows up about 100 pages in and comes in like a wrecking ball. What stood out to you about her arc?
Oh my gosh, she's amazing. She's like so very much like Louisa, and it totally makes sense that I for a second was like, she's Ollie like reincarnated.
Nice.
Um, because I assumed that all these people had died except for Ted and the artist. Um, no, I just appreciated the parallels between her and Louisa and their sort of like, I'm gonna call it shared trauma. Um, I'm not really sure that that's extremely accurate, but Louisa really understood all of the parts of Ollie that Ted was telling her because I think she'd experienced a lot of the same things. Um, and I don't know, I loved her I believe in you instead of being able to tell them that she loves them because that's like the most you can do. And like Louisa put it very succinctly, and that's like somebody who's been raped is not going to be able to say I love you. But I appreciated still that like these boys were her people and she felt so secure with them and she did believe in them. um yeah, I don't know, I just the vibes were good.
The fact that her home life was such a shit show. It was just her father, and he just wanted to party. He didn't want to be an adult. He wanted to be Peter Pan. The problem was he had a 14, 15-year-old daughter who, needed a fucking stable family
Protect.
or
Yeah.
something. So yeah, she was raped one night at one of these parties where she was drugged, by one of these outstanding people that her father hung out with. And she woke up in the middle of it, fought the person off, and then ran into the woods and was gone for over 24 hours. And her dad never noticed because that's the kind of father he is. When they touch on that, Ted asked Louisa if that had ever happened to her. And I think she said no, but it had happened to Fish.
Right, you're
And
right.
that's why they slept with screwdrivers every night.
Right.
And that's why she could understand what Ollie went through because Fish had, been so open about what she had been through and what it, how terrible the world was. And yeah, I love you and I believe in you becoming their thing was just fucking heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And like how even at the end she tries to tell them that she loves them and she's unable to still, even though she's had this incredible year with them. Yeah, her character came out of nowhere because we know about the three people on the pier, so we always, or at least I always assumed it was the three boys. And then we learn that it's the three others, and the artist is what's all around them. And we learn how that's how he painted or drew or whatever. He always started on the outside and worked his way in, and he was unconventional in that way. And he tells them, "I'm everything else because of you guys." So her coming in was a little bit of a surprise, but I loved how much she brought to it. I loved her relationship with the OR and how they would go from fighting to friends and fighting again in 10 minutes, and how they were constantly picking on each other, but always had each other's backs. And it was her, right? Was it Ollie that, yeah, she loved Ted's mom's lasagna, right?
Yes.
She
Oh,
was the one that was always eating it. And we have that moment at the end where, towards the end of this, where Ollie asks her how to make it because she's so excited. And that's all Ted's mother, that's such a huge moment for her too. Ted mentions it's the first time he remembers her smiling twice in the same night, for God's sakes. So she added so much to their dynamic. She was definitely a fucking wild card.
oh my God,
Uh,
yeah.
and she always pointed out like this was your absolute worst idea, but it seemed like half of them were hers too.
She's not going to point those out. I
Yeah.
will say, I think too that um, Ted brings up how like frequently they kind of were like, we can't remember a time before Ali. Like
Mm.
she came in like a wrecking ball in the best way possible, but then like fully transformed them into something else so that there was never a like before Ali time. It was just like this has always been.
And how she didn't know how to swim. They jump off the pier and she didn't tell him that. And then like I think he described her as like an octopus with one missing leg or something, like how she was just kind of like
Really?
scatterbrained out there. Um, yeah. Uh, um, I think somebody had to die, to be fair. But it really bummed me out that her and Yoar did not get their happily ever after.
Me too. I was hoping for that bow, I'm not gonna lie. I do think that her kind of disappearing is chaotically mysterious enough for Ali's ending, but it also like no body, it's not real kind of feeling.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that knowing that they can't happen because she's gone is really sad.
And the fact that they like made a gravestone for her, for their
They moved it closer.
in the churchyard. And yeah, once they buried the artist, they moved her closer to him. And then they even pointed out the priest or whatever found it someday. They
They
counted
were
one
like,
extra headstone. And he's
whatever.
like,
The
what does it
dead don't
matter? It's
care.
not, yeah, they're not bothering anyone. Uh, yeah, so and the fact that so we don't even know her real name. But Yoar calls her Ali because she gets into a fight the first day or when they meet her. And then how Backman does it, because this is who he is, when he gives us her side of that day. And she talks about how because of everything she's been through, she's thinking about killing herself and how she needs a new start, new friends, new life, maybe even a new name. And then that she gets that with Ali. So just incredible. Just that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's stuff I don't think about. Not an author,
No.
but
And he's
so
just
powerful.
so good at it, like putting all of those dominoes there and then knocking them down.
Yeah. So finally, we have when it comes to the friends, we have Ted. What made an impact on you from his childhood as we kind of see why he is the way he is? And we get a lot of Ted's story.
We do get a lot of Ted. I think like um how quiet, but like we've said, he's like glue for the group, obviously. Um, but that he, I think, has this interpretation of like what his parents or his mom specifically wanted him to be, like tough and strong and certainly not gay, and like um how kind of not reclusive, but just like how quiet that made him because he couldn't really like be himself because he felt like he wasn't living up to expectations. Um, I think, like we said before, the portion of the story that he's telling about how, his room's in the basement and yada, yada, yada. And Louisa brings up, like, hey, maybe it's because of this. Like, that I think was very telling because this is how he interprets his space or him in the space is sort of as an afterthought. He like wasn't really cared for, but like all of these little like not microaggressions, but like micro caring for. Like his mom is doing the best she can. She's not doing great, but um I don't think that it's like as an adult, I think maybe he can see that um it wasn't as intended. You know, like he's receiving things differently than perhaps she intended. I'm not saying she's a great person. She's still got her flaws, but I will say that one thing that stood out for me greatly was his relationship with his older brother and like how much that progressed. I loved the little epilogue bit at the end about his brother in general. Again, another very small part. We don't even know his name, but that like he and Ted had had that moment after his dad's died or their dad has died where they're drinking beer together, and his brother's telling him stories about their dad that he never got to experience. Um, and like the ghost thing, oof, slays me. Um, but that he's like, you know, play a song for me, and like, I think you'd be a really good dad, and all this stuff, and then like, come to find out he's not a dad. He's met this great woman, but like, he teaches the neighborhood kids how to play piano, and like that. Ted is able to be loyal and like show somebody else their worth.
Just gonna mark you down for two.
Fair. I think he yeah, he has a really good ability to like see what's really good in other people but can't see it in himself.
Yeah, he talks to his brother at the piano there, and his brother talks about how in this town, and everyone says it, in this town, because it's so small, you're never going to get out. So the people you're friends with are the people in your age group. And yes, the ox, his friend, is a piece of shit who is constantly getting them into trouble. And Ted just says simply, and he's like flinches, thinking he's going to get hit after this comment, but don't you think you're better than that? Don't you think you're better than him? And then, of course, Backman gives it to us in his way, where he's like, oh, one night he's going to a party with the Ox,
Oh,
but he'll never make it
and
because,
I was like, he's gonna die.
yeah, exactly. But no, Ted's
Tells
words
him to get out.
resonate with him, and he decides to get out of the car on the way there and walk home. And then at the party, the Ox and others get into a fight, and they kill a guy or almost kill a guy, and they get
Yeah.
arrested. And the sliding doors moment is that I think he puts it as like that first step in a different direction could change everything.
Yep.
And it does. Um, I saw so much of myself in Ted.
Same.
This is where I got had problems writing stuff down for it because um, so Ted talks about with his brother, he talks about how he's not sure if he got the better end of the stick or not because for his dad goes through a 10-year illness that slowly kills him and takes away who he was. And Ted never knew who his dad was. He doesn't have those memories, and he wonders if that's better or if his mother and brother have it better because they at least knew who he was before that. I've had that same fight with my brother. And I held resentment towards him for a lot of years because of that. And when we finally did talk about it as adults, I realized that he didn't have as much as I thought he did, as far as memories of our parents and all that, just because he was 6.
I was gonna say he wasn't very old.
No, he wasn't that old. But I had nothing, so I assumed he had something,
Right.
which is unfair. So that moment
Was
for
that the
me
first time you talked about it? Like when you were fully adults, both of you?
about this specifically, yes, it came to a head at some point.
Yeah.
For sure. We've had our ups and downs.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, we definitely went into it one night about that, and like the coming out of it was that literally could have been a Reddit "Am I the asshole?"
Oh no.
Turns out I was
Oh
um,
no.
on that side of thing. But so that was it's interesting to see that happen in front of you, and be like, oh shit, straight line. And then when they're sharing his dad's beer, and he talks about how while his dad was sick, his mother kept buying the beer for his dad so it would be there. And his older brother kept drinking the beer so that it would need to be bought. And then when they lose their dad, the beer is no longer being bought. And it's that same night that Ali, or no, it's not that same night. Ali gets lasagna, right? And that's a thing. But um, Ted brings a beer to his brother, and it turns out to be the last beer. So they decide to share it. Something I do to remember my parents, my father, is I drink his favorite beer every year on the anniversary of his death, just as a thing to be like another year that I'm thinking about you. So that was another one that I was like, fucking dead. What are you doing to me?
Ted.
Um, it just, again, like there's something to be said about when we read these books and we say believability. And there's another thing to see yourself in them and say, that is believable. I live that. That's my reality. And that was really strange for me to see. And for me to get through because I just wasn't expecting that. And people can interpret things however they want. But I'd say that was pretty on the nose for me. So those moments with Ted, literally the whole time, I was basically crying
Yeah.
when Ted was talking. When Ted was having moments with his brother, I was crying. When Ted's mother, or like when he's talking about, and again, this is just how Backman does it. His brother tells the stories, right?
Yeah.
How his brother used to have nightmares. So his mother would get a blanket and sleep at the base of his door so the nightmares couldn't get in. And his father would get home late, so he would step on every single creaky floorboard that he could to let everyone know that he was home. And that night, after they have this talk or whatever, his mother comes home and Ted from the basement hears every creaking floorboard. And
And
later that night, when his brother passes out, he sleeps on the outside of the door for his mother.
he'd also Ted had eaten a plate of lasagna, even though he wasn't hungry.
He had left the plate out so his mother would know that she did her job to feed him. Just wondering if this is all one or not. It's like the
We
moment
can.
stops, the moment comes back.
I will also say the moment when they're having that conversation and the brother and him and um the brother like this is sort of like the first time like you said he's sort of like wait Ted is like waiting to get hit when he's like asking questions and like
Yeah.
and then his brother points out like how great his friends are and is like are you dating any of them and he was like that's the nicest thing that any like that blew me away because like the little bit that we got of his brother very much seemed like he was just following the leader with Ox and like becoming
Toxic masculinity.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And like becoming one of those guys. And so to have this little like it's all just one. It's one. We're counting it as one.
I've been marking them all down. So
Okay, great. But also like, yeah, I don't know. That's Ted is amazing. And like full stop. All the stuff with the being our sort of primary narrator and like telling the story so well and being the glue. That with his brother was like
and
it was a lot.
you touched on it before too, but Good Night Ghosts,
Oh,
where his dad would go around and shut off all the lights, and afterwards, because their house was so ramshackle when they bought it, that they were convinced it was haunted, or I think his mother was convinced it was haunted. So he would go around and say "Good night, ghost" to everyone, and Ted's like, "I remember that. Like, that's actually a
a
memory."
memory.
And we see that with Louisa, where she thinks she has a memory of her mother singing to her,
Yes.
and years later she sees a movie with Fish, realizes that lullaby is from that, and she wonders, if she
How
really has the.
authentic her memory is.
And Fish tells her, like, it's still your fucking
It's a
memory.
memory.
So don't let this take something from you. But it's the exact opposite for Ted, where it like reaffirms that he does have something of his
Yeah.
father. And how that like comes up earlier on the train when he falls asleep. As he's falling asleep, he says, "Good night, ghost," before we even know what that means. Again, just another Backman thing. Just incredible. Talking about Ted present day without crying. Um,
Maybe.
Yoar talks about how he was a huge asshole, meaning Yoar was, and Ted wouldn't let him go.
Yeah.
And just kept fighting for that friendship because he knew he needed it, but he knew Yoar needed it too. He needed somebody to tell him he wasn't a piece of shit,
Yeah.
even when he was a drunk and was kind of a piece of shit.
Right.
And that just reminds me of, you know, how like this whole book, I think too, besides the parts about dead parrots that made me cry, um, just reminded me of how lucky I am with my friends because we have these memories too. And we're trying our best to keep those friendships alive. And it is, some days it's a one-way street,
Yeah.
you know, or some periods of time where one of you is going through something and it's on the other one to try to do everything and then, you know, carry the extra weight on your
Yeah.
shoulders. But for them to survive, they've got to be a two-way street because not one person can do that. So Ted carries Yoar for a long time. But then we see it the other side when Louisa
Yes.
comes into the
Reciprocated.
picture. As you said, they give all their savings to make sure she can get in, you know, she has everything she needs for art school. And it even says like most of it was Ted's, but Yoar
Yeah.
still did what he could.
Yes.
It's just all of that where he came out the other side and he recognizes that Ted is part of the reason he came out the other side. Like Ted didn't give up on him, and Ted refused to do that with all of them.
Well,
Just powerful.
and it's like you said, when they were trying to come up with their superpowers, and Ted said something like cheesy because he didn't want to say what he really wanted to say, and Yor was like, "No, it's loyalty."
Yeah,
Like that's so accurate.
yeah. And again, this just made it so it's I don't know. I'm biased. I don't know how you read this book and you don't like it
You're
because now you're giving us the
welcome.
back. Like we're learning Ted's backstory too as
Yeah.
part of this. Like all that didn't have to be in there because it wasn't about the painting and the artist and all that, but it told us why Ted was the way he was with Louisa and how he came to be. And it was just all those stories, man.
All those people that are like, it didn't really like go anywhere. Like it absolutely did. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't have to go anywhere in the future. Like it took me on a journey with all of these people. Even the like eight-fingered man. And that's his only name. Well, not really, but whatever.
Oh my God. And how when they're at the hospital for Yoar's father, and the three other ones were in the chapel
The
because that was the
chapel.
place they could lay down, and that's where Yoar finds them. And Kim had been drawing the
The
chapel or
chapel.
whatever, something. And he just leaves it on the bench, and then Yoar's like, "That could be worth millions!" And he goes running back for it, and it's gone. And
But then it's in the shadows. The dad has it.
it's in the shadow.
Like so like anybody who says that he's a bad writer or doesn't like his books is fully wrong. Like fully wrong. I will fight them.
And we keep talking about Louisa and how she got to art school, but for
Ugh.
Kim, it was they talk about how his dad drove him there and then took a bus home. And when I read that, I was like, didn't he drive there? And it's because him and his mother, they were divorced,
They're
sold
divorced.
everything they had, and then some of the guys at the harbor chipped in too to make sure he had everything he needed to get into, or you know, all the supplies he needed for art school. And just another kind of finally realizing. I think his mother, because she passed, like one of her last words were like, "I'm so glad you weren't normal" or something like
That's
that.
what I think she said when he went away to school.
Okay, like
Yeah.
gave him that kind of uh,
Permission to like be
to be
himself.
yourself. Yeah, even though you have been the whole time, you've been
Yeah,
great
it
at it.
sounds like she had some issues
Oh yeah, she definitely
all
had some
along.
mental issues that she had issues working through for sure. I mean they everyone in that town had problems for
Oh
sure.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so we've gone through the friends, we've cried quite a few times. Let's talk about the ending of our book. So, what did you think of our ending with Louisa donating the painting secretly to the museum and then becoming a world famous artist and finding another one of them?
Um, I mean, great. I love the bows. Like, did I see her becoming a world famous artist? Absolutely. Does it totally track that she found another one? Absolutely. Um, but it's sort of a like it's a nice little cycle of
Yeah.
like here's this person. I absolutely loved when Christian's mom came into the story and saw Luisa's work. Like all of that, and then we get to hear the story about her coming to the museum to rescue the kids with Kim Kim's painting and seeing that for the first time, and just like the parallels between everything works perfectly for me.
Yeah.
Totally here for it. um Absolutely, yeah, just 100% in, like all the money on the table.
Yeah, I'm fine with the bows again. I like that it's classic, like full circle moments
Yes,
that Backman is definitely known for. Again, the similarities between Kim Kim and Louisa, the journey they're now on, how they find another one. I like that the friend group is getting bigger again. You know, they're no
yes,
longer worried about losing people. Now
yes.
it's like we got Louisa, and
What
maybe
younger
Louisa's got another
generation?
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see how this goes. It was bows. It was fuzzy bows. They were warm and cozy bows. I loved the bows. I was okay with all of it. Yeah, I loved Christian's mom still being around and being able to be a part of it. How she pulled the same strings. How we got her side of the story of coming to the museum to bail those kids out because it was the only adult they could think to call that would say, "No, this is our painting," you know.
Right.
And she's like, "It absolutely doesn't belong here." And Kim Kim's taking it the worst. And then turns out it's because it's so much better than all that, and that like feeds him a little bit more. Um, and just powerful stuff and how she can feel Christian in them when it's like I found one of us. How they quoted the poetry that Christian
Oh,
quoted to him to Kim Kim from his mother, and like how this all became like a rolling thing, you know. And she's one of us too. As when they get back to Yora's house, and he's like, "Get off the roof," and she's like, "You don't think I can get on the roof? I can get on the fucking roof." And Ted's the one that doesn't want to go up there.
and then she drives them when she doesn't even have a license.
Yeah. Oh man, just so many. Just tell them we're being kidnapped.
Yes.
So many great things. So yeah, I thought the ending was fitting. I liked the too how we get the closure on the guy who sold the auction, because for those who didn't read and are
Yes.
here for some reason, Kim Kim decides to sell everything he owns to buy back his painting, his first painting, because he knows it's going to auction. And that's why he said sends Ted there to do it. He's supposed to just chill out, but he decides he wants to sneak in and see it one last time. That's when he runs into Louisa and everything happens. Um, so the auction house reaches out to Ted after this mysterious appearance in a museum and tells him how grateful he was, the auctioneer, to see it one last time in person, and how he believes that that's how art should be viewed. So, you know, I'm sorry to let you know that I've lost all your contact information. So I'm not sure who actually won the painting. They can't be tracked down for whatever because it becomes a national story. Another, just like that is how Kim Kim would have wanted it. The fact
Yeah.
that his name is Kim Kim, because of their dumb little interaction, or like the first time they meet him, it's like, "What's
He
something?" And he's like,
couldn't
"Kim,"
get
and he's
it,
like,
and then he
"Kim,
repeats it, and then he's
Kim,
like,
Kim,
"Yeah."
Kim," and it became Kim Kim to the point where when Yuar says his name to his father, he's like, "What the fuck?" I didn't like he's even a
He
little
didn't
bit
even realize they
ashamed.
had a nickname.
He's a little bit ashamed because he realizes that he didn't even know what his son's friends call him.
One thing that I think is interesting about like the family situation with the kids is Yoar's mom fully knows about his friends because Yoar and her have such a great relationship. And then that moment where they do the bird release and like she gets to be part of them and like interact with them, that was really sweet. And like Ted's mom, to a certain degree, but his brother, like know how much this friend group means to them. And like poor Kim Kim's family is like completely clueless, and Ali's well, dad is a piece of shit and definitely clueless. And I just think it's really interesting that there were people that recognized how remarkable their little crew was,
Yeah.
even
And
amidst everything.
I meant to touch on it when we talked about Ali, but the fact that she hated dresses, uh,
Yes. Oh, and
but
then they all wore the dresses. Ah!
because her mother loved how she sang, or something they used to sing
She
together.
wanted to be in choir, yeah.
So she did choir for her mother, who I think she did pass. It's that why she wasn't there. So probably there's enough trauma in this book. Let's add
I think
more.
so.
And so to be in choir for the performance, she has to wear a dress, and the boys like pick on her a little bit and then realize that it's deeper than,
really
something you can just
intense.
rib on
Yeah.
somebody for. So they go and they take dresses out of Yor's mother's closet and wear them to the recital and sit in the front row. And that gets Yor beaten to the brink of almost death. But he still feels it's worth it because he made his friend smile when she was incredibly uncomfortable. Yeah.
Oh,
Filled with beautiful moments.
such beautiful moments. Also, like these 14-year-olds are like so much more emotionally mature than
Well, they've been through a lot of shit. I mean, every
yeah.
single one of them, they've had to grow up for sure.
Yeah.
For additional spoilers, we already talked about what Siyat was for, and all that, just being their initials. The other one I had was we talked about I love you and I believe in you, Good Night Ghosts, and Tomorrow. Tomorrow, where when they said goodbye to each other at the crossroads, where it was kind of they all lived in the vicinity, they would say tomorrow, and they would all respond tomorrow. And I think it was one time Yoar didn't say it or something where they thought something was up with him. And they talk about how they always met at the crossroads and they would wait for you if you weren't, wonder why you weren't on time or whatever, because summer vacation was great. You'd stay out of
Yeah.
your house all day. But the tomorrow thing, like that, those kind of little things, again, it's like, I don't know how you think of them because usually in a friend group they come so naturally, right?
Yeah.
So to like actually be like, what would they say? I
Right?
just thought that was so impressive. But Backman's an impressive writer. So,
Yep.
um, was there anything else you wanted to touch on before we move out of spoilers?
I mean, the only other thing I wrote down was Christian in the Skulls, but we already talked about that.
Yeah, that again, just Ted being like, that's the first time I saw him do skulls in years. Was like, ugh, ugh.
Oh man, I just like all of these characters are so huge. Like a lot of them we only like scratch the surface of, and yet they're still so huge, and it's such an amazing
I mean, and
ability.
then like you were saying, the epilogue, like even for Ted and the conductor,
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
maybe there's a chance for something there. And how Louise is like, he just got out of prison. She's like,
So
what are you
funny.
doing? And Ted, she's like, you don't look tough enough, Ted. People like bad
Well,
boys.
and the full circle of the conductor being like, no, I kept the box because like I wanted to be able to like, and that like the windy way that he found Ted's information, like through the mom on the train, and like just all of that. Perfect bows that are perfect. And I was so happy about them.
I mean, we didn't even talk about like in the present day where Louisa abandons Ted on the train. He goes after her.
Oh,
And she's smart enough to avoid the men because she knows men are terrible
and
people.
he's
And
like, yeah, I'll get in your car. I
oh
was
yeah,
like,
you're gonna help me
kid,
look for her? And then he gets mugged, and then thankfully Louisa comes back to save him. But they miss the
and
train,
the
and then they
cab driver.
meet this crazy cab driver who's totally about trying to drive the train down so they can get the
Love
painting and the
that.
ashes of the artist and Ted's luggage, which has his wallet back. And yeah,
So I was telling my coworker who's read this book before that I was reading it, and I was like, it's so good so far. And she was like, oh, have they gotten off the train yet? And I was like, no, they're still on the train. She's like, okay, it gets crazy. And then when I got to that part, I was like, it really does.
Amanda was like, "Where are you?" And I was like, "Louisa just got off the train." She was like, "Okay." It is one of those things where you're like, where's this gonna like again, I don't understand because so much happens
Yeah.
in the main storyline as we're moving forward. Like, even if you don't like, I don't know how you don't like that. I don't know. All emotions. Anyway, so yeah, there's plenty we didn't cover, I'm sure, but check it out. So we are going to move out of spoilers and moving out of spoilers. We're not yet done with the book. We have to give it our grade. We do this based on the D&D D20 scale. So 1 is bad, 20 is good. And then we add or subtract a character, modifier, ability, characteristic, or skill from the game Dungeons and Dragons that we think best fits our story. We alternate every episode, so this time it is Taja's turn to go first. So Taja, what did you give this book?
So I think somewhat unsurprisingly gave it a straight roll of 20. I know. Everyone is shocked. Yeah, I probably would have given it a higher straight roll if there were a higher dice to use. No, it was everything that I wanted a Backman book to be. The characters are, here's a good phrase, so flawlessly flawed
Nice.
that they all have their things, they all have their issues, but they're all so amazing, and he writes them so perfectly that I felt like I was in the story with them.
Yeah.
Like, again, the ability to create a teeny tiny character that is a drop in the bucket or the ocean of your story and still have me care about them or be moved to tears about what they said or how they acted, that's amazing. I sincerely hope he does not stop writing.
Same.
I get it. Like, you gotta do you, Frederick, but please don't stop. Please give me more of this. Like, I say this every time I read a book that makes me cry. Barry kind of makes fun of me. It's like, why do you do this to yourself? Um, and I don't want to say it feels good, but it does. Like,
One more for the show here.
one more. Um, it's just I like to feel feelings
Yeah.
personally. Um, I think that it's cathartic to feel sad feelings, but a lot of the time, especially with Backman books, I am crying happy tears. In like, and I'm laughing like this book made me laugh out loud too. So yeah, I think this is such a relatable book. Not necessarily for like the trauma perspective, but I'm sure there's like such a variety of trauma in here that like it's a choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
So there might be something for somebody that they can more directly relate to, but even if you don't have those same traumas, it's the human condition that you can relate to. And so frequently when they were talking about how old Ted is, I was like, rude.
Yeah.
I'm older than him. But I also feel like the juxtaposition of a young character and an old character getting along and finding this shared moment in grief, but then also like a way to grow out of it together, um, is just phenomenal. And I'm gonna give it a, this might be not enough. Let's give it a +1 constitution. Yeah, okay, 2. I'm giving it a 2. I'm changing it right here on the spot. I had waffled about it a little bit, and then I was like, don't be too, whatever.
I
Um,
wondered if I should go first this time. Let me
yeah,
put
oh,
it that
you're
way.
gonna give it so high. I just feel like I can't. I would definitely recommend this book to like anyone. Of course, that's
Yeah.
like a nat 20. That's what you're gonna do. Um, there is enough like trauma stuff in there that like it might not be everyone's bag. Whatever. I mean, if you don't like this book, you're wrong. I think we've kind of landed on that.
Unbiased opinion, you're wrong.
Completely 100% unbiased opinion. Completely objective. Um, but I don't know if I actually said these words out loud. 2 + 2 for Constitution, because
Yeah.
like it took a lot to not cry the entire time. I will say too that the audiobook narration phenomenal. I mean, it reads really nicely too. I did both. I did like bookend, listened in the middle and read the beginning and the end. Um, and that's how I learned how to say you are correctly. But yeah, I think that both of them moved me to tears and to laughter. And I feel like, yeah, the +2 is really to me for my constitution. So 22.
Nice. I also gave this a nat 20, unsurprisingly.
Shocker.
This was the easiest 5 stars on Goodreads.
Yeah. I
Just
didn't even think about it. It was just like,
yeah.
boop.
Just the fact that again, I don't think I ever sobbed while I was reading it, but I just constantly had not constantly, but enough. I had
Yeah.
tears just going down my face. I was constantly clearing my throat, my nose.
Yeah.
It was just getting gross up there with
Yep.
sadness. Emotion, I guess is the better way to say it. Because yeah, I agree with you. Like sometimes you cry happy tears here too. It's just the writing is so well done. Um, Again, there's sentences that blow your
Oh
mind.
my God.
There's
Yes.
paragraphs where he tells you about a person who breaks your heart. Like there's so many it wasn't he didn't build up until this great moment at the end that you like release the Kraken and
Oh
everything comes
no.
out. it was throughout it. He was tiny cuts where he was
Yep.
just making you leak tears
Yep.
with these different moments as they happen. The relatability of Ted fucking broke me. That
Mm.
was not something I expected coming into this book, and like it feels like a brag to do that, but I don't know. It was that meme of
It's
somebody pointing in the
you.
mirror where that just you're in this story. So for me, I looked back on my grade for this book because when I rated the House in the Cerulean Sea, I didn't think I'd ever go higher. And I'm not, but I'm also giving this the same as I gave the House in Cerulean Sea, which is a +4 at Constitution.
Woo!
Because, as I said then, I'll say it again, this book gave me life. This book gave me something. This book kind of reaffirmed how lucky I feel about the relationships I have. Because for Ted, and Yoar. And well, I guess Ted and the artist had the last 2 years, but really, when they look back on this, they had 25 years ago. And then they went their separate ways, and life took control, and everything happened. And for me, I'm incredibly lucky that I can sit down with a group of guys and say, 25 years ago, we did this, and last week, we did that.
Yeah.
And just kind of having that. I mean, my uncle told me when I was in high school that I spent too much time with my friends because they weren't going to be my friends in 10 years, 5 years. You go to college and you change.
Nice.
And I said, that was the dumbest thing ever. You've grown up with these people. These people know so much about you. Why would you ever just move on from them? Like you can make new friends, but keep the old. I never understood that. And the people that like I would meet, because I didn't really go to college that much, but my brother did. So I went to college with him for a little bit, meaning I stayed at his frat house. And I would meet freshmen that were like, I met my best friend. I'm like, you've been here a month, dude. Like,
That's not your best
even if you
friend.
met one of us, which is fine, you can't tell me that there's nobody at home that doesn't mean more to you than fucking whatever, this person that you just came across. So that I don't know, reaffirming. I don't know. I put myself in this book so fucking hard that I just couldn't pull myself out. I read it so quickly, one because I had to, but two also because I couldn't put it down. And like I knew it would be that way. Like most Backman books are very
Oh
much
yeah.
like Coben books, but for different
Yes.
reasons. I mean,
Yes.
they're both page turners, but like Coben, he sets the hook and you just want to know where his
Yeah, you want the
perverted ass mind
resolution.
is gonna like bring you at the end and how many twists and turns there are.
Yep.
With Backman, the hook is set with emotion and it's like breaking you not to know, like the exact opposite of Louisa, where numerous times she's like, stop, just stop, don't tell me
I
anymore
want a
because
happy
this is my
ending.
happy ending. And then she'll be like, no, I need to know more. Like that's you put the book down for like 5 seconds and you're like, okay, I can't.
I
And
need
then
to
you're
know
like,
more.
but I'm gonna anyway, so I need to know. So yeah, this thing delivered, and I knew it would. This is definitely a case of where I was like, oh, we've already covered him twice. I'm sure we'll cover it. Like we had talked about it, and then it just happened to, be
Work
at
out.
my free dump book swap. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
okay, this makes sense. So I knew we'd get there eventually. I'm so happy we did because, yeah, I think also it's hitting me at the perfect time where like I need that emotional release too. So just like
Yeah.
reading was like a great way of just clearing out all of this, getting some
Yeah.
emotion out of me. So yeah, it's a 24 for me, 22 from Taja. That's a 23. I don't know how that stands up with House of the Cerulean Sea. I think it's pretty similar as far as our book grades go. So I'm gonna guess this is one of our highest rated books. Also, to be fair, I don't know the last time we gave a +3, let alone a +4. When I look back at that, I was like, boy, we were crazy
That's what,
100
like,
episodes.
honestly, I was like, a +2 seems like a lot. And then I was like, how often do I add like more than two?
We rarely go over two. And
Yeah.
so I was like, yeah, we can't do that. And then I look back and I was like, oh, +4. Okay, we're gonna have to do it. So yeah, 23 overall. Yeah, read this book.
Yeah.
Ask us
So
for it.
good.
Read this book. If you're lucky enough to have people in your life like this, like even the Weird Family, which is now we've been doing for 19 years. For me, it's 17 years. Like I still have these moments too, where it's like looking back and being like, we have this. We're very lucky
Yeah.
to have one of us quite a few times. So
Oh yeah.
hopefully, if you're listening to this, you have someone like that as well, at least one. And on that, so for the last time, the book was My Friends by Fredrik Backman. Check it out. If,
So
as
good.
Taj said, if this is the last book he writes, it's incredible and also incredibly
He's,
heartbreaking because
yeah.
the man's got talent.
Mr. Backman, please write more.
If you're watching, definitely thanks, like and subscribe. And on that note, we move on to segments as we're not done with this podcast yet. We move into segments, which starts with current selection. Don't know how much time you've had for other things, Taja, but have you done any other reading or listening to?
Not much, just the Dungeon Crawler Carl, the Parade of Infinite Horribles or whatever.
How's it
The
going?
eighth one. It's really good. I'm like 20 more. I don't know how far along I am. Let me tell you. 27% completed.
Nice.
Parade of Horribles. It's very good. I absolutely love the narrator. I think we've talked about how Dungeon Crawler Carl is going to be a TV show, and they just announced that Jeff Hayes, who does the narration, is going to be Donna, and I think that's perfect. He's fantastic. Yeah,
I think he's friends with Matt Dinniman, and I don't know if that's a
they're
before.
like
I know they
super
are now. I wonder if it's a before times thing.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, he's incredibly skilled. I mean, I think he narrates like a bunch of stuff. He's like a Travis Baldree. But yeah, uh, I'm really liking it. I love how like it's absurd, but also deep, which is how I felt about Operation Bounce House too. So yeah, I'm liking it a lot. It's I'm sure Dragon Con's gonna be full of Dungeon Crawler Carl stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it started popping up last year. I think this year it's going to be even
It's
more
going to
so.
be real big.
It's definitely gaining. I mean, Marcus told us about it 2 years ago, for God's sakes. So yeah, it's just an avalanche now.
And he had said, Matt Dinniman had said, I think that his plan is for there to be 10 books. So there's only going to be 2 after this one.
Yeah. And I saw he's working on another standalone
awesome.
right now as well.
I loved the other standalone, so I'm into it.
Got a bunch of irons in the fire on that guy.
Yeah.
For me, it's very similar, and I kind of knew this because I don't read much when my parents are around. Usually when I'm around them at their house, but when they were here, it's also very difficult to read. And then in Maine,
he's on 100.
I guess, and in Maine, because I can read anytime, but I can't go looking for sea glass anytime. Like pretty much anytime I would have spent reading, I was out on the beach. So I'm still in Mistborn. I've got Hero of Ages, book 3. I've still got about 150 pages left of that. So I'll finish that up in the next couple days and move on to something else. But it's been when you're reading these epics, it's really hard to read a bunch of books. So anyway, that's, I don't know, maybe a disappointing current selection. We'll try to do better. Probably not this next time, though, and we'll get to that. But before we get there, we have random recommendations. So, Taja, what have you got for us in a very random recommendation this week?
So I have a recommendation from my coworker, Emily, who was listening to this book, told us about it this week, finished it, really liked it. It's called Shark Heart by Emily Habak. And it's basically, okay, so I'm just going to read a little blurb from Goodreads. It says, an emotional exploration of motherhood, marriage, transformation, and letting go. Shark Heart is an unforgettable love story about mothers and daughters, husbands and wives, animals and people, all while examining what it truly means to be human. And apparently, in this universe that this author has created, humans just somewhat randomly transition into animals. So one of the main characters at like 30 something is told by doctors that he's going to be turning into a great white shark, and he has to kind of deal with that. He's going to retain his consciousness and his memories and stuff. He's just going to be a shark. And his wife, who they just got married like weeks before, is like, okay, well, I'm going to live with you in the sea, which like doesn't really make sense. It sounds bonk town, but my coworker Emily, not the author Emily, said it was really good. And like she kind of got like she was listening to it, but got like lost in the story of it. So I don't know. It conceptually super strange sounding, but it sounds like it has a little bit of the Backman like these characters are really interesting and the story is actually interesting, and you come to care about them so much you can kind of maybe overlook the fact that people turn into animals randomly. I don't know, or maybe that's part of the whole point, is like the relationship between humans and animals. Literally.
Yeah. So we were looking for a random recommendation. We came up with one, and then Tosh was like, "Oh, my coworker told me about this," and she explained it to me, and I was like, "Okay." It definitely sounds interesting, and I can see, as I think you mentioned, Emily, at one point, like even forgot that like people were turning into animals. Like that's how
She was like
engrossed she
so
became.
involved in this person's backstory, and then at the end of this backstory it was like, and then she turned into a Komodo dragon. I mean, probably more eloquently put than that. And Emily's like, wait, what? Because she had become so engrossed in the character. And I think that's a mark of probably pretty good writing, if you've already forgotten that people are turning into animals in the book.
Right?
Then.
Nice. So that was Shark Heart by Emily Havoc. So check that out. It was also a debut novel for that author. So wild first swing.
Totally wild. I was like, she was describing it to me and our other coworker, and I was like, this feels a little bit like a Sharknado situation. Like we're just throwing stuff at the wall and
Just
seeing what sticks.
don't make a second one. Don't make Turtle
Yeah.
Heart. Okay.
Yeah, Shark Heart 2.
The sharkening. Anyway, nice. So check that out. We may at some point. We'll see. And on that note, we have to wrap up here, which means we have to get on to what's on the next podcast. And once again, because summer is crazy and we're trying to do a lot while also doing a lot. So we're trying to do a lot for the podcast where we try to make a point not to do a lot for it while also doing a lot in our lives.
Yes.
And somehow we're not balancing properly. So we're going to try to do more. And by that, I mean, we're going to try to bring you another episode in the next 7 to 10 days to try to get our timing right for Dragon Con and beyond. So what we're going to do, hopefully, is read this surprise book. So Taja, what have we got going on there?
Oh, sick. That's so funny. Did you have to tell Nern not to
Yes.
let me know?
Yes, I did.
Mossed in Space by Rebecca Thorne. Our friend was reading this, and I was like, can I borrow that when you're done?
Right in front of you. And I saw it and I went, oh shit, that's one of the surprise books I'm giving Taja. And she goes, that's funny. Taja asked if she could have this copy. And I said, please don't. And she said, okay, I will try to be forgetful for the first time ever and not remember to give her the book. And then the last day or Sunday or Monday, whatever it was, she's like, I successfully did not give Tasha the book. And I was like,
you did.
okay,
I was going to ask about it, but then I was like, you know what? I don't want to bother her.
So Rebecca Thorne, this is one that I've seen a lot because she has a series that the first book is called A Pirate's Life for Tea.
Amazing.
Yes. So I've always like wanted to jump in that, but I'm like, I don't know. This just came out at the end of June.
There's Sentient Moss.
Sentient Moss. The thing I saw was basically like it's a Firefly crew that it's a non-standard romance, so maybe the Moss gets into it. I don't know. Found family and a whole bunch of
artwork is fantastic.
Didn't even know there was artwork, and there's a ton of puns. So yeah, I was like, if there could be something for Taja, it sounds like me. It is this. So yeah, and the tag human romance is ridiculous. So that is right up my alley. So again,
that's fantastic.
Mossed in Space by Rebecca Thorne. We are going to try to bring this to you in the next 7 to 10 days. So we'll see how that works out and how our timeline works. But that means this is the end of this podcast. And the final tally on the cryometer was Taja pulling ahead with her ranking where she got a 5th one and me slightly behind with 4. I did also mean to mention I gave it a +4, 1 for every tier that I had in this episode.
Hey.
But forgot that as well. But we're going to put this behind us and we're going to hopefully move into puns and laughs and a little bit more lighthearted. I mean, this
maybe less crying.
A little bit more lighthearted reading. We'll see for the next episode. So this has been episode number 123, ABC, TCS 1, 2, 3, of the ABC Pod, the Adult Book Club with Taja and Russell. Hopefully the exit, intro, or outro will cover all that noise.
Keep Keep reading.
reading.